There we go. Hi, welcome to ADHD Friendly. I'm Patty Blinderman. I'm an ADHD coach I'm in my second decade back. I'm finding all these new ways to say it. I've been attempting to serve to the best of my abilities, the neurodivergent community, really focus on ADHD brain wiring since 2012. Much longer than that in my own personal family, but professionally since 2012. So welcome, this is episode 134. I invite you, if you haven't and you're looking for more resources to support your ADHD brain, check out my website, ADHD-Friendly.com, for lots of additional tools and strategies. All right, so I got a new strength I'm going to share.
Ooh,
I know, it's a very sparkly one. So I'm going to start with my celebration tied to that. And then I've got an ADHD-friendly tip today for you to try to support your life with a little bit more ease. And then our topic today is how to use Apollo 13 strategies to triumph with ADHD.
Ooh.
One of my favorite things of all, and you know I'm like a little geek about this, is taking like TV shows and movies and just gleaning the little nuggets from them that resonate for me in terms of my ADHD brain and putting structure around them so that they can help me to do things with more ease. So I'm just going to highlight some from the movie Apollo 13,
I love that.
which came out in 1995. I watched it again last night in preparation for this, and I'm like, oh gosh, they're babies. How old are they? So I Googled it, and it came out in 1995. So I'm like, it's coming up on its 30th anniversary. I wonder if they're going to release it in movies. I mean, because that's actually with the whole like rocket taking off, that would be a good one to watch in theaters.
That'd be fun.
It would be. All right, so let's start with this celebration. Welcome, new subscribers. It was a close one, almost went backwards this week, but we didn't. It's okay. We have 5 new subscribers, which I am so stinking grateful for. Thank you so much for taking the time to click. We are so happy that you're here. I hope you find something in this episode, and every episode is my intention, that will help you in some way with your ADHD brains. All right, Becca, I am so excited about this celebration. So I've shared before, I love making lists. And I like the Jumanji tool. So if you ever saw the movie Jumanji, specifically the newer one with The Rock, where he taps his chest and up pops a list of his strengths, because they're like dumped into a video game format, and it lists his strengths and his weaknesses. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, that would be so awesome if I could immediately access, wait, what am I good at again? And what do I need to watch out for? It's so sparkly. So I have one of those, and added to my list of strengths is a new strength. So I have things like weaknesses, like I don't like the heat, I don't like confrontation. And my strengths are things like I use a lot of external visual concrete tools to support my brain, and I like to put structure around things. I love to learn new things. And here's my newest. I took a time typing test.
Dang,
if you were listening to this, check this out on YouTube. ADHD Friendly is the channel.
that's incredible.
I typed 9 words with 90% accuracy. I haven't done a time typing test since I was in high school.
That's good.
I was like, yeah, I did. I literally was like, I took a screenshot. I was sending it to my family. I'm like, check this out. Nobody responds. I get one little thumbs up. I'm like, oh my, no, I used to do time tests in high school, and this was on they were electric, but it was, not as efficient. And you had to do the whiteout to make the corrections. So everything impacted the time. And I remember my fastest time was like 78 words a minute. It didn't occur to me I could have gotten, of course, I mean, I type every day. I was an editorial typist for years in my dad's newspaper. I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was. And that was on your computer. That wasn't even on my computer. I was just sitting and doing it. I was like, oh, I'm gonna try this. And I was like, let me just, see what it is. So that was so sparkly. I added it because I'm like, that is something I'm really good at. And I know if people, I'm not even aware of it sometimes, but I've been like in meetings or, different things like conferences, and I'll be typing something like kind of like make a like wow. And I'm like, I know. Like I'm not even paying attention, but somebody highlights it and like, oh, that's something I'm good at. And I'm proud of it because I worked really hard. That wasn't the one in high school that I got straight A's in. I remember like sitting down because I tried to learn Spanish, got distracted. It's one of those that builds. And so, I never could learn Spanish. It was just beyond painful. And I had that happen in math classes. Like it was like, if I just noticed, oh, this really comes back and bites you. So I remember in typing, I was like, you are going to focus, girl. You are going to do everything like home key, and I just Absolutely. And I learned, and it's funny because the typing test all of these commas and punctuation
Yeah,
marks and
yeah.
numbers and things. And I'm like, I got it
had
all
it.
because I did all of that and I took it seriously in high school. So
Love it.
listing is my strength. Can you see my energy? This is why it's so important to acknowledge successes and capture them related to your strengths, because you can tap into them. They can fill you up with that positive emotion. And we need that. There's so much negativity out there, guys. We need to have a way to capture the successes we experience and the strengths tied to those successes so that we can continue to tap into them. I feel like I am getting distracted by the way I look. I'm not liking my hair today. Okay. Moving on.
Moving on.
All right. So because the main topic today is related to Apollo 13, I'm going to use one of the Apollo 13 strategies as an ADHD friendly tip. And that is create a launch pad in your home. And by a launch pad, a lot of you may have already heard this term. You may have already done this. I needed this particularly when my kids were younger because I have 4 kids. Getting out of the house in the morning with everything we needed was comical. Like I'm kind of grateful in a lot of ways that when they were really at the peak of growing up and on varying degrees of impact with ADHD, that everybody wasn't filming everything all the time because there's a lot of that I'm grateful there's no record of, because it was not like the nice calm settled like, all right guys, now let's all line up and get in the car. It was like, what? Yeah, we took your lunch yet? Like it was just. So a launch pad is just literally a place that you designate within your home that's a central location that you can launch from. So it might be in your hallway, near the main door you go in and out of. It doesn't need to be like a specific room or anything. It can literally just be a table, a little tucked away shelf or something that you can create to be able to make it easier to get out of the house with what you need in the morning. So it could be a table, shelf, just like I said, like carving out a little area of a hallway or an entryway. So pick a location, and that is your launch pad. So you're defining that space, and that's going to be its purpose for your getting out of the house with more ease. The next step is to gather essentials. So it could be some bins. It could be like a little couple of like little like trays or bowls to capture like your wallet, keys, phone chargers, like set up like a little charging area so that it's pulling you into putting things in there so that you know when you go to leave, that's where they are, right? So it's visual because you're seeing that it's, oh, this is where I put everything when I come in. This is where they're going to be when I need to leave. You're grabbing them. Could be your backpacks for kids, planners, like whatever needs to go with you, having those chargers there too. So when you're done with your devices, you're taking them back there and plugging them in so that they're ready to go when you leave. Maybe consider some hooks if you're going to be hanging jackets, some like a little like boot tray to put some shoes so that when you take your shoes off, there's like a home. I had one family that I was a professional organizer for years. And one of the things that they created when we organized their entry area was like a big wicker basket just to throw shoes in. That worked for their family, had a bunch of young kids and they just threw their shoes in there. It was like one place for everybody's shoes. And, what works for you is what I always say to honor. We're kickers rather than setters. And that means like we kick our shoes off instead of like taking them off and putting them someplace. So if you are a kicker, the basket may not work for you because it requires you to bend down. It's an extra step. And every step creates more resistance. So keep it easy and notice what would work for you. Because if you set up your launch pad in the way that your brain works, it is more likely to continue serving you instead of you being like, oh yeah, that was a great idea. It didn't work. Don't do it the way it works for everybody else. Do it the way that works for you. Other ideas are maybe have like a family calendar or a whiteboard. You can write notes. I always loved the Harry Potter, Mrs. Weasley's clock that didn't tell time. It told where everybody was.
Where her children.
Yeah. And I actually had that on my dry erase board. I made it into like a pie and I wrote everybody's name. And there were little magnets that you could be, at school, at work, and you could move the magnet to your little piece of the pie wedge, if you will. And so I could at any time just go and look and be like, oh, that's where they are in my room. Because like sometimes they're home and I'm like, where are they? Oh, they're in their room. I'll just go look at the wall.
I know where they are.
So make it sparkly, make it work for you, make it interesting so that you're pulling yourselves into maybe even writing a quote. Something positive is the last thing you see. Maybe a mirror so that before you leave, you're like, oh, I have like food stuck on my chin or something. It just gives you a chance, one quick, am I ready to go out into the world? And then just tidy it up periodically so that you're continuing to be pulled into using it. If it becomes kind of like another place that needs to be reorganized, that's going to create resistance. So just quick tidying up so that it's not kind of falling apart and creating resistance is really just the last step to using it as a really functional launch pad. So that's my first ADHD friendly tip from Apollo 13.
Love that.
All right, and now a quick ad from our sponsor, which is ADHD Friendly. So feel free, jump ahead if you don't want to hear this little announcement. So again, ADHD Friendly exists to support people to thrive with ADHD. Everything we do is designed to tilt that playing field in favor of our brain wiring so that we are able to do things our way and thrive, because that's the only way we can thrive is if we do it our way. And I invite you to check out the membership community at ADHDfriendly.com to see if there's something in there that is aligned with what you need right now. In the month of May, we are focused on digital decluttering. So we have a lot of sessions around organizing your digital pictures, cleaning out your email inbox, really focused on getting the digital clutter under a little bit more control. So again, the events change each month. Check it out. See if what we're doing would help you to thrive with ADHD. And now back to the episode. All right. So got some Apollo 13 strategies I'm going to share.
Yeah.
And these are literally ones that I believe will help us triumph with ADHD. This is one of my favorite movies to pull from. So I've talked before about how I loved Seinfeld strategies like Serenity Now. Like I literally like Serenity Now. Like I pull it up all the time when I'm feeling overwhelmed. From like The Lion King, I like Rafiki when he would hit Simba on the head, and he was like, oh, that hurts. He's like, oh yes, it does hurt, but it is now in the past. Like have it like just remind you, like keep moving forward.
Right.
And Apollo 13 is definitely one of my favorites. So I'm going to just share some specific strategies that I have used over the years since this movie came out nearly 30 years ago. And again, always take what works for you, leave the rest behind. I just share some things that were sparkly for me and invite you to explore if it's something that could help you. All right. So the first is powering up the command module. Oh my gosh. So if you're familiar with the movie, there's a scene where Ken Mattingly is in a simulator and he has to continually rework the steps that have to take place in order to power up the computer in the module that the astronauts are out in space. And currently it's not working, it's shut down, and they have to figure out how to power it up without it overriding the system and kind of shorting out. And Ken says it's all in the sequencing. And I know the sequence works if we can order the sequence. This is so important for our brains. It's one of my favorite things to think about is if I have a list of things I'm trying to get done and I'm just noticing I have a lot of resistance, I just can't seem to start. Changing the order of the sequence of what I'm asking myself to do can often be all that I need to do to then create a way in. So the order of the tasks can avoid overloading the system and also requires less energy, so it's more efficient. So just a quick, how do you power up your command module or your brain in a way that works for you? Often we try to bite off the biggest, that saying, do the biggest thing first, and then it creates all this momentum. That often doesn't work for us with ADHD. If it works for you, fabulous. But if it doesn't, it might be what little things can I check off and build up a little bit of success and some of that dopamine in our brain, that reward system's getting kicked in, like, oh, look at me, I'm getting things done. Now I can feel like I can do that larger task. Do it your way, but see if maybe changing the order of the things, if that's possible to change them up, can be all that's needed to power up your command module. Okay, the next is there's a scene where Jack Swigert, who is played by Kevin Bacon in the movie, he's running through all these checklists, and the other two that are up in the capsule are in the LEM module. And he has this little sticky over one of the switches that says NO with an exclamation point. It's just taped over one of the buttons.
No.
And when Jim Lovell, the commander of the flight, comes back into the command module, he's like, what's this about? He goes, well, I was really afraid that it literally just detached
Oh,
the
yeah.
limb. And he's like, I was afraid I was getting punchy because they were awake for a really long time. He's like, so I had that there just to make sure I didn't accidentally detach when you guys were or the other thing, which would have killed them all. And Jim Lovell's like, all right, yeah, good thinking. And I love that because it was a visual prompt. It was a reminder, no, like no matter what you do, don't do this. And so, and Becca, I know you can't see it from where you're sitting, but I have one of those, one of the light switches in my office goes to the internet for the house. And so if you turn it off, all of the internet turns off. And like it happened so many times when we first moved into this house, it was like, oh my gosh, like we're trying to figure out what happened. And so now there's just a sticky on it that says no with an exclamation point, just as a reminder. So again, I just invite you to ask yourself, where would you need a prompt to help you to remember either yes or no, or whatever it would say to help you to be able to do what you intend to do without relying on your brain to remember at that point to do it. Right? The visual prompt can literally serve as that, and it gets out of your head and it makes you more efficient because you're not having to remember all these little things. It's like, oh no, that's right. I don't touch that one because there's a note there. Okay. The next is be creative, do things your way. So there's a part where they realize their carbon dioxide levels are getting to really toxic levels, but they had the filter was only made to work for 2 people and there's 3 of them. So they have to figure out how to make a new filter to clean the air so they don't die. And they have a round filter that has to go into a square filter. Of course it doesn't, but they have to use the materials that they have up there in outer space to convert it to make it work. And so I just love that because it's tapping into our creative brains. We are nothing if not creative. And often we have everything we need to do the things we're trying to do, but we have to get creative about it. We have to allow ourselves to do it in the way that works for us. That just reminds me that we have everything we need if we allow ourselves to use it in a way, kind of thinking outside the box, do it in a way that works for us. We can solve any challenge. All right. When they are getting ready to take off, this is another awesome thing at Mission Control in Houston. So they take off in Florida, Mission Control is in Houston, and they are all like, are we go or no go for launch? And there's this whole systems checklist where they go down to each of the engineers or whatever the roles are. I don't know. And they're checking in with them. So like, systems go, and they all have to check in.
Yeah.
I love the idea of how do you know that if you are go to commit to something? We often jump into things. We get an invitation. Somebody asks us to take on a new project. Somebody asks us if we're available this weekend to babysitter, dog sitter, house sitter, go to something. And maybe, we don't want to say no because we want to help, or we don't really want to do it, but we don't really feel like we can say no because we can't remember what we have already going on. So it's like, well, I can't think of a reason not to. So, okay, yeah, I can do that. So what I love about this one is something I've been using for years is pause and literally be like, let me get back to you by the end of the day, or send me an email, remind me what you need and what time frame or whatever it is. And I'll check my calendar and get back to you. So it creates a pause, but then I go and I have to look at it and be like, okay, what are the conditions for it to be go? So for me, it's, I have the time on my calendar. I have the space of time, meaning I have the energy. It's going to fit in without it feeling like, oh my gosh, I can do it, but it's going to be tight. If anything goes wrong, I'm going to be really kicking myself. Does it bring me closer to my goals? Like, is it something that, I like in 2024, I'm trying to say yes to more things. So maybe it's something I ordinarily be like, oh, that's outside my comfort zone, but I am trying to say yes to more things. Is this the thing I want to do that with? I have the time, I have the interest, and I have the energy that I would need. And if all of those are not yes, then it's no go, right? Then it's no, that's not going to work for me. And so some of my no-goes, things that I know absolutely are always a no, is do not make the decision live. Meaning if somebody asks me, I have a boundary, a self boundary, that I don't commit to it in the moment. Even if I'm like, oh my gosh, there's no reason, I'm not like, absolutely, I'm doing this. I'm like, I am 95% sure I'm going to say yes, but let me just look at my calendar to confirm. Because I have so many times can't think of a single thing that would get in the way. And I'm like, yeah, I'm in. And then I look at my calendar, I'm like, oh my gosh. Now either tickets have been bought or I've got it. And it just creates so many more. I'm like, let me just do my future self a favor and say, I'm not saying anything 100% committing live while I'm talking to the person. I'm going to go and check. So what are your go, no go decision makers? If we have a sense of what they are, oh, and I can show you my little tool. So I literally I did this for a slide for a webinar a
Go,
few
go,
years
go.
ago. But here's a little like blank example, like, do you have the interest? Do you have the time? Do you have the energy? And then what are your no-growth criteria? Like I already have 3 things this weekend or whatever it is, like deciding what your criteria is beforehand can make it so much easier to make that decision with more ease because you already decided what your criteria are and you can filter through that. Okay, my last one is not going to be tied. So if you are an engineer or, really understand mathematical concepts, forgive me, I don't. But they have this thing where they always say like, we're flirting with gimbal lock. We're coming really close to gimbal lock. And to me, gimbal lock always means getting ready to spiral out of control, getting ready to tip into overwhelm. It's not what they mean, but because I did look it up and I found like an entire like description for what gimbal lock is. And I decided I'm not going to try to describe that to you because it doesn't interest me and I don't really care. But I use that term as a way to connect to, I feel like I'm starting to get out of control here. I feel like things are dangerously close to becoming a big problem if I don't rein things in.
Yeah.
So I would, again, just if that term resonates for you, what does gimbal lock look like for you? And how do you pause so that it doesn't continue to spiral and kind of regroup and pin things back down so that everything isn't untethered and kind of, loosey-goosey out there creating problems. And then just 2 really quick quotes I just loved. One is they're kind of like, in my mind, reaching gimbal lock in their brains, like where they're getting overwhelmed. There's so many things going wrong. And Jim Lovell says, who is played by Tom Hanks, he says, there are 1,000 things that have to happen in order, and we are on number 8. We often think of every single thing that has to be done, often like maybe for the rest of our lives, like we're just keep piling things on. I love the simplicity of we're on number 8. It's like work the problem in front of us. No, don't add on to it with everything else. So that was like a really simple, I think of that quote a lot. And the other is where his wife, when she finds out that he's going on this flight, it's Apollo 13. And she says, oh, I can't believe it's 13. Why does it have to be the number 13? And Jim says, well, it comes after 12, hon. I just love, again, the simplicity. It's like, okay, let's not like read into things that aren't there. Let's keep it in perspective. So that's it. That's my Apollo 13 strategies to really, explore to thrive and triumph with ADHD. All right. Trying something new today. I'm watching our time because I don't like these episodes to go too long. And I was going to do this earlier in the episode, but I'm going to do it now. So I was reading an article this morning. So this is very spontaneous and I'm considering making this a regular part of the podcast. So I invite you, post in episode 134 if you like it. I know a lot of us struggle with things, with stuff, with buying things and having things and managing the things that we have. But also buying things is really sparkly, right? It fires up our brain and there's a lot of reasons why we do it. And the article I was reading was talking about how Americans in general, and I know this is a challenge in other countries, but this was really talking about, it was in the Atlantic. And I apologize, I don't remember what it was called. It literally was something I was reading this morning when I was having my coffee. But they said Americans in general, like they don't see any end in sight to the volume of things that we're buying. And a lot of them are kind of crappy things, like a lot of discount sites that we're just buying stuff, and more stuff. And I think about how when I first got married, there was a person that lived across the street from us that had, what was it called? An Amway. It was an Amway business. I don't know if you're familiar with Amway. I guess almost like Tupperware. It was like a home like party kind of thing where I think it was like cleaning supplies and household things. I don't know. I wasn't a fan of the products personally. So if you sell Amway, if that's still a thing, no offense intended. Just, I remember he had to like have like permission because he would have like a UPS truck come every week with a delivery. And because he was doing a business out of his house, he had to like have like permission for this like business delivery of a UPS truck because it was kind of disruptive. I'm not like 80 here. Like it was like, it's kind of mind boggling when I think about how, and I'm sure it probably came several times a week, but like it was like unusual. Yeah. Like it was, if you think back, if you're older than 40, if you think back to, how exciting it was when a package was delivered or when you got an actual card in the mail, but really a package was very sparkly because it was so rare. It was almost like maybe what people that were alive during the times of telegrams would experience. It was like oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Like everybody
Yeah.
would be like, and now it's like, oh my gosh, did you get the package? There's a package out there. Well, you go get, like, it's just, it's so
Right.
regular. I watch the UPS truck when, or the Amazon truck when I'm on my walks, just go driveway to
Back and
driveway,
forth.
just drive, like literally almost to every house. Like it's insane how many things are being delivered. So I read this article and it was talking about how it's a challenge because we don't even know what we have,
Yeah.
how much stuff we have. We're buying storage units or paying for storage units to store the stuff we have. It's just piling up. It's more stuff that we can consume. And, you know, I always read things and I take things in with that ADHD lens of, okay, this is so much more of a challenge for us because we can't hold in mind very efficiently what we do have, what we need, how much money we have available for the things that we're buying. And everything's so digital and invisible now that I just think it's so much more of a challenge. And I think there's a lot more shame in that. So I'm starting a segment called, what did you buy this week, Patty? I promise you're going to do it every week, but I'm starting this week because I bought a lot of things that I don't ordinarily spend money on.
Sure.
And I thought, yeah, when I read the article, I'm like, yep, hello, that's me. So I'm going to start with the thing I needed to buy that I still resisted because it was so expensive, but I had to. And that is the flea and tick
Oh yeah, the dog medicine.
I have 3 of these because I have 3 dogs, but it was like $80 each. So I paid, what's 8 times 3, 24, 240. Actually, it was like 250 something with tax on 6 months supply for each dog of flea and tick medicine. And that's always like a, you know, you got to do it, but okay. So on top of, this is definitely a need, not a want, because I can't have fleas and ticks all over my dogs and everything.
Yeah.
But then I realized, you know, I love my little, I'm not huge into scents because I'm so sensitive,
Right. Yeah.
but one scent that one of my clients actually turned me on to a few years ago, this Capri Blue, the scent is called Volcano.
Yes.
Might be a favorite thing. Was it already?
I think it might have been.
So this is the oil diffuser.
Yeah.
And I have had it, I got it for my birthday almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So it really did
It
last a very long
lasts.
time.
It does.
Lasts longer than anything I've ever had diffuser wise.
Yeah.
So I love it. Again, I needed it because it was not,
Yeah.
but I didn't, it's not a need. Like I can live without this.
Right.
But it felt like I needed it. And because I really needed it, I thought, well, what if I also got
Ooh.
the candle?
Is it the same scent?
It's the same scent.
Ooh.
Because it's blue and blue's my favorite color.
It looks so pretty too.
Right?
Isn't that
I
just
know.
nice packaging?
Yeah. Oh, it came in a beautiful box like that.
Gorgeous.
And because it's the one scent I can use, I thought, what if I got the little lotion?
Stop it. It comes in a lotion too?
Oh yeah, of course. No, I did have the lotion before, but again, I bought it same time I bought the diffuser. And I used so little because I can't take any,
it's a lot. Yeah.
I literally take a little dab and I mix it with unscented lotion and that's it. So it didn't smell, it smelled a little funky. I didn't realize it can get kind of funky.
Oh,
And so, and I don't use it very often. So I was like, oh, well, I'll buy the lotion too, because that I can no longer use. So the diffuser, I think, was 40. The lotion, I think, was around 30. I really don't remember.
Yeah.
The candle, I think, was like 30. It was like $120 for these 3 things. But
you.
it felt very, I literally remember feeling very, very, very strongly it was a need
Yes.
when I purchased it. And I justified it as such.
You will
Not
use
feeling
it.
the same way now. That's the now, not now brain, guys. It's a challenge. So then this weekend, I was telling Becca that I went to something I'm going to talk about another. Oh no, I must have dropped. Oh no, there it is. I went to like a Comic-Con kind of event.
Yeah.
And I bought a few things.
Ooh.
No, I did have cash but I didn't 100% and like use there were times I went to somebody and they only took credit. And I was like, credit, we lose all track of what we've spent.
Totally.
Completely disconnected,
Yeah.
which was definitely the case. So the first thing about was this happy little picture because it just made me happy. And I'm going to put it in my Halloween bin and get it out for Halloween. It was from Mr. Pumpkin.
I love it.
I don't know if it's like mrpumpkin.com. I'm not sure. I just thought it was adorable to see the pumpkin head painting the ghost family.
Oh, mushroom in the corner.
It just made me happy to look at it.
Cute.
Totally a want.
Yes.
Clearly.
Totally
a want. The only thing needed here, guys, was the flea and tick. And then I bought again another one. You guys, if you follow me, or if you're ever on my live calls when I do them for my desk, I have Yertle the Turtle in the background. Like one of my favorite Dr. Seuss books. They had little Yertle the Turtle earrings. Come
Stop
on,
it.
come on. And they were,
If that's
15,
not the most Patty
$15.
thing I've seen.
So cute.
So cute.
Love these guys so much. Now, my kids don't watch the podcast. I'm feeling pretty confident in that because I'm going to show you some things I got for my daughter for her birthday. She's obsessed with Star Wars. So I got these little earrings.
Very
These were
cute.
also 15, which I thought were so, they're Ahsoka. She loves Ahsoka.
So cool.
And this, she also loves Mads Mikkelsen, which is a whole other thing. Come on. It was so funny. I couldn't stop laughing. I was like, I have to. I literally, I have to. The candle was 15.
Oh, I'm
Again,
laughing at that.
These were all definitely, now these are kind of needs because I am saving them for her birthday. So my celebration is I didn't impulsively give them to her as
Good,
soon as we
yeah.
got home and she was at the conference with me and I did not show her. And now what I know about myself, if I can make it 48 hours without showing them,
Yeah.
I can put it aside and save it for her birthday. I just put a little reminder in my calendar.
You just gotta remember.
I do put a calendar reminder so I remember. But I wanted to share that because it was so interesting, even because it's so fresh, and I was spending more than I typically spend. So I think it was heightened. And I'm just sharing, number one, because the struggle is real, people, right? Like holding in mind how much we have available. Do I really need that? Is it a need or a want? And what can we do to kind of hit the brakes if we're not quite sure if this fits in with our goals or our budget or our interests, or if it's just like, it's so sparkly to hit buy now or whatever it is and have the package brought to the house. But it just adds more stuff, right? So if you're looking for some support with that, again, check out ADHD-Friendly.com to see if some of the offerings that are included might help you to just, pin some things down in your life in areas that you're struggling in. But we'll see if I keep sharing I just feel like it holds me accountable for every week. I'm kind of like, okay, this is what I bought this week. It will certainly raise my own awareness of what I'm buying.
It's fun.
All right.
Like
So the book for this week is Thanks for the Feedback by Douglas Stone and Sheila Hine. This is actually the first Friday webinar for May. I'm talking about how to receive feedback when you have ADHD. Lots of strategies in there. And if you do join ADHD-Friendly.com, you'll at least have the recording of that webinar where I talk about some ADHD-friendly strategies to receive feedback a little bit more easily, so we're not getting our sensitivities triggered as much. And I have a quote for this book to wrap up the episode. And the quote is, learning about ourselves can be painful. It can feel less like a gift of learning and more like a colonoscopy. Sorry, colonoscopy. I was laughing there, which I think is just so true. It's hard to admit these things that we struggle with, but the more we know, the more we can do. So it's all about learning and thriving through that learning. That's it for this episode of ADHD Friendly. As always, take what works for you, leave the rest behind. Thanks for joining me. If you haven't subscribed and something in here, kind of worked for you, I invite you to consider subscribing. Follow us so that you get notifications for each new episode. We come out every Wednesday. Until next week, tally ho.